The creature on the view screen made Ambassador Veltok's 4 hearts stop beating for exactly 2 seconds. In his 300 years of service to the Galactic Federation, he had seen many terrible things. He had witnessed the burning of entire star systems. He had stood before the Council when the Devourer swarms had threatened the outer colonies. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for what he was seeing now. A Krethax, a living, breathing Krethax. And worse still, it was being led on a chain by a human soldier who was smiling as if this was the most normal thing in all the known galaxies. "Ambassador, are you still there?" The human's voice came through the communication link, casual and unconcerned. His name was Captain Marcus Stone, and he commanded the human warship Unconquered. Behind him, the Krethax made a sound that Veltok's translator could only describe as a happy rumble. "Captain Stone," Veltok managed to say, his voice shaking despite his best efforts to remain calm. "Do you have any idea what you are holding on that leash?" "Sure do. Found him on Nexar 7. Poor guy was all alone, probably lost his family somehow. We've been calling him Buddy." "Buddy," Veltok repeated, the word feeling strange and terrible in his mouth. "You named a Krethax, Buddy." "Well, Sergeant Chen wanted to call him Murder Beast, but I thought that was a bit much." Buddy seemed friendlier. Veltok felt himself beginning to hyperventilate, which was quite a feat considering he breathed through specialized gills. He forced himself to remain calm and approached the matter as he would any diplomatic crisis. "Captain Stone, the Krethax are responsible for the extinction of 17 sentient species. They destroyed the illuminated ones, who had achieved a state of pure energy consciousness. They ate their way through the silicon mines, beings made of living crystal. They reduced the great floating cities of the Etherborn to nothing but ash and screaming memories." "Huh," Captain Stone said, scratching his chin. "Buddy doesn't seem like that kind of guy. Watch this." To Veltok's absolute horror, Captain Stone reached toward the creature. The Krethax was roughly the size of a small ground vehicle, covered in scales that could deflect plasma fire, with 6 legs ending in claws that could tear through starship hulls. Its head was dominated by a mouth filled with 3 rows of teeth, each tooth as long as a human's forearm. Captain Stone scratched behind where Veltok assumed its ears would be. The Krethax's tail began to wag. "No," Veltok whispered, "this cannot be happening." "Who's a good boy?" Captain Stone said in a high-pitched voice that seemed wrong coming from a decorated military officer. "Who's the best monster in the whole galaxy? You are. Yes, you are." The Krethax rolled onto its back, exposing a belly covered in softer scales. Its 6 legs kicked in the air with apparent joy. "Captain Stone," Veltok said, fighting to keep his composure, "I must request that you bring that creature to Federation Station Gamma immediately. Our scientists need to study how you accomplished this. The Krethax have been classified as the deadliest non-sapient predators in the known universe. They do not have pets. They do not have friends. They have only prey." "Well, that's what we thought too at first," Stone admitted. "When we found Buddy, he charged at our landing party, scared the living daylights out of the crew. But then Private Rodriguez threw her lunch at him as a distraction so we could escape." "Her lunch?" "Beef jerky and a protein bar. Turns out Buddy really likes beef jerky. He followed us all the way back to the shuttle, wagging his tail. When we tried to leave without him, he looked so sad that Rodriguez couldn't bear it. She smuggled him aboard." Veltok's mind was struggling to process this information. "You are telling me that the most terrifying predator in the galaxy was tamed with dried meat?" "Beef jerky specifically. He's not as fond of the turkey kind. A bit picky, really." On the screen, the Krethax had gotten back to its feet and was now pressing its enormous head against Captain Stone's side. Stone absently patted it while continuing to speak, as if standing next to a creature capable of destroying entire colonies was completely ordinary. "He's really quite affectionate once you get to know him," Stone continued. "Follows Rodriguez around everywhere, Sleeps outside her quarters. She's been training him, actually. Watch this." Stone looked at the Krethax. "Buddy, sit." The massive creature sat, its tail still wagging, mouth open in what could only be described as a smile. Saliva dripped from its teeth, each drop capable of eating through standard bulkhead plating. "Good boy." Stone produced a piece of dried meat from his pocket and tossed it to the creature, who caught it with disturbing precision. "We're heading to Federation Station Gamma now for resupply. Should be there in about 3 standard days." "You are bringing that thing here." Veltok's voice rose several octaves. "Well, yes. We can't leave him alone on the ship. Last time we did that, he got lonely and chewed through 2 bulkheads trying to find someone to play with. Cost us a fortune in repairs." "Captain Stone, I must strongly advise against this course of action. The presence of a Krethax on a Federation station will cause widespread panic. Several member species have ancestral memories of the Krethax hunts. The Velori will likely attempt to flee the station entirely." "He'll be on his best behavior, won't you, buddy?" The Krethax made another happy rumble and licked Captain Stone's face. Given that Krethax saliva could dissolve most organic matter, the fact that Stone's face remained intact was yet another mystery. "I need to contact the Council," Veltok said weakly. "This is unprecedented." "Tell them not to worry. Buddy's completely harmless. Mostly." "Mostly." "Well, he did eat a pirate ship that attacked us last week, but to be fair, they shot at him first. He's very protective." The communication link went dead, leaving Veltok staring at a blank screen. He sat in silence for several long moments, his 4 hearts beating in an irregular rhythm that his doctor would definitely disapprove of. Humans, of all the species in the galaxy, it had to be humans. When humanity had first made contact with the Federation, they had seemed so ordinary. A young species, barely capable of interstellar travel, with soft bodies and short lifespans. The Federation had welcomed them as a minor member, expecting them to quietly integrate into galactic society like so many others before them. They had been wrong. Humans, it turned out, had evolved on one of the most hostile planets in the known galaxy. Earth was a world of extremes, where the weather could kill you, the animals could kill you, and even some of the plants could kill you. The humans had not merely survived this hellscape. They had thrived. They had climbed to the top of their food chain through sheer stubborn determination. And somewhere along the way, they had developed a strange habit. Instead of destroying the dangerous creatures that shared their world, they had tamed them. Wolves became dogs. Wild cats became house pets. Even creatures that could kill humans with a single bite were kept in their homes, fed by hand, and called family. Now, apparently, they had added a Krethax to that list. Veltok reached for his communication device and prepared to deliver the strangest report of his very long career. The emergency session of the Galactic Federation Council was the fastest one ever convened. Within 6 hours of Ambassador Veltok's report, representatives from all major species had gathered in the Grand Chamber, either in person or via holographic projection. The mood was tense. Several delegates had brought personal weapons, which was technically against chamber rules but understandable given the circumstances. High Counselor Zethnari, a Velori elder whose species had been hunted by Krethax for millennia before achieving spaceflight, presided over the meeting. Her silver wings were folded tightly against her back, a sign of extreme agitation. "Let me understand this clearly," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "The humans have somehow acquired a living Krethax, and instead of destroying it or containing it in a maximum security facility, they have made it a pet." "That is correct, High Counselor," Veltok confirmed. "They call it Buddy." A murmur of disbelief swept through the chamber. "Buddy," repeated Admiral Korath of the Thraxian Empire, his massive armored form leaning forward. "They gave it a name, a friendly name." I believe the human soldier responsible for its initial capture wanted to name it Murder Beast, Veltok offered, but the captain overruled her. That is somehow even more disturbing, said Scholar Minthix of the collective, its crystalline body pulsing with confused light. They had the option to name it something appropriate and chose not to. High Counselor Zethnari raised a hand for silence. We must address the immediate concern. The human vessel Unconquered is currently en route to Federation Station Gamma, carrying this creature. We have approximately 52 hours to decide how to respond. Destroy the ship, suggested Commander Vrek of the Insectoid Hive. Eliminate the threat before it reaches the station. And start a war with humanity. Admiral Korath shook his massive head. Have you forgotten the Terran-Thraxian conflict? My people lost 3 fleets before we managed to negotiate a truce. Humans do not surrender. They do not retreat. And they definitely do not forgive attacks on their own. Surely they would understand the necessity, Commander Vrek insisted. The Krethax are a threat to all life. You clearly do not know humans, said Trade Representative Yilix of the Merchant Guilds, her gelatinous body wobbling with something like amusement. They formed emotional bonds with the radioactive wolves of Chernobyl, a disaster zone on their homeworld. They keep as pets the descendants of apex predators that nearly drove their ancestors to extinction. Suggesting we destroy their new pet would not lead to understanding. It would lead to war. Then what do you suggest? Commander Vrek demanded. We let them dock, High Counselor Zethnari said slowly, the words clearly paining her. We observe this creature under controlled conditions. We learn how the humans have managed to tame it, and we pray to whatever gods we worship that they have some method we can replicate. The chamber fell silent. You cannot be serious, Scholar Minthix said. The Krethax destroyed 3 of my ancestor clusters. Their teeth can crack our crystalline bodies like glass. You want us to allow one onto a Federation station? I want us to survive, Zethnari replied. If the humans have truly found a way to control these creatures, that knowledge could change everything. The Krethax have been a threat to galactic civilization for over 10,000 years. Entire species have been wiped out, colonies abandoned, trade routes closed. If we can tame them. She did not need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the chamber understood. Very well, Admiral Korath said, but I want a full battle fleet on standby. If that creature so much as twitches wrong, we vaporize the entire docking bay. Agreed, said the High Counselor. Ambassador Veltok, you will serve as our liaison with the humans. Learn everything you can about how they accomplished this impossible feat. Veltok bowed, though his 4 hearts were beating far too fast for comfort. As you command, High Counselor. The council meeting adjourned, but the chaos was only beginning. Word spread through the station like fire through a dry forest. Within hours, half the civilian population had packed their belongings and were demanding evacuation transport. The other half, mostly younger beings of various species, were apparently eager to see the monster up close. I do not understand, Veltok said to his assistant, a young Thraxian named Kreth who had been assigned to help with the situation. Why would anyone want to be near a Krethax? The humans have been posting videos on the Galactic Network, Kreth explained, pulling up a display. Apparently the creature has become quite popular. Veltok watched in horrified fascination as the screen showed the Krethax playing with what appeared to be a large ball. It was chasing the ball around the cargo bay of the human ship, its deadly tail wagging with joy. Human crew members watched from catwalks above, laughing and cheering. They taught it to fetch, Veltok said weakly. There's more. Another video showed the Krethax curled up beside a human woman, the one Captain Stone had called Rodriguez. She was reading a data pad, absently stroking the creature's head. The monster's eyes were half closed in apparent contentment. It has its own sleeping area, Kreth continued. The humans constructed a large bed for it out of salvaged materials. They also made it toys. Toys. Apparently it likes to chew things. They give it decommissioned armor plating to gnaw on. Veltok sat down heavily, his legs no longer willing to support him. This is madness, complete and utter madness. The videos have received over 2 billion views, Kreth added helpfully. Comments range from, "I want one," to "Humans are insane," to "This is the best thing I've ever seen." 2 billion. And rising. Several fashion designers have already released clothing lines inspired by the Krethax's scale patterns. There's a musician who wrote a song called Buddy the Murder Beast that's currently top of the charts in 37 systems. Veltok put his head in his hands. The galaxy has lost its collective mind. Possibly, Kreth agreed, but you have to admit the videos are quite entertaining. Before Veltok could respond, his communication device chimed. It was a message from the Unconquered. "Ambassador," Captain Stone's face appeared on the display. "We're about 24 hours out now. Just wanted to give you a heads up. Buddy's getting a little restless. He always gets that way before we dock somewhere new. Lots of new smells to investigate, you know." "Captain Stone," Veltok said carefully, "perhaps it would be best if the creature remained on your ship while you conduct your business at the station." "No can do, Ambassador. Buddy needs his exercise. Rodriguez takes him for walks 3 times a day. It helps with his behavior." "Walks? You take a Krethax for walks?" "Sure. He's got a lot of energy. If he doesn't get regular exercise, he starts eating bulkheads again. Last time that happened, he accidentally breached the hull in Section 7. Had to seal off the whole area for 2 days while we made repairs. Nearly lost my favorite coffee mug." Veltok was beginning to suspect that humans had a very different understanding of danger than the rest of the galaxy. "I will make the necessary arrangements," he said, because what else could he possibly say? "Great. Oh, and can you make sure the station has some open space? Buddy needs room to run. He likes to play chase." "Chase?" "Yeah, he chases Rodriguez around. She throws a ball, he brings it back. Pretty standard stuff." "Standard stuff. A human casually playing chase with a creature that had hunted sentient beings across the galaxy for 10,000 years. Standard stuff." "I will see what I can arrange," Veltok managed. "Thanks, Ambassador. Buddy says hi, by the way." The screen showed the Krethax's massive face as it pushed into view, its mouth open in that disturbing smile. Then it licked the camera, leaving a trail of corrosive saliva that sparked and fizzed against the lens. The transmission ended. Veltok looked at his assistant. "Find me the largest open space on the station, and have medical teams standing by." "For injuries." "For myself, I may need sedation before this is over." The Unconquered emerged from hyperspace exactly on schedule, its sleek form a testament to human engineering. Surrounding it were no fewer than 12 Federation warships, their weapons hot and ready. Admiral Korath commanded the blockade personally from his flagship, the Iron Judgment. "Human vessel, you are cleared to dock at Base 7, the station controller announced, her voice carefully neutral despite the tremor in her hands. "Please proceed at 1/4 speed and do not deviate from the assigned approach vector." "Copy that, Station Control," Captain Stone replied cheerfully. "Base 7, 1/4 speed. Buddy's excited to meet everyone." "Please refrain from letting the creature exit the vessel until we have completed security protocols," the controller added. "No problem. Rodriguez is giving him a bath right now anyway. He rolled in something during our last stop. Smelled terrible." Ambassador Veltok, listening to the exchange from his position near Base 7, tried to imagine what could possibly make a Krethax smell worse than it already did. He decided he did not want to know. The bay had been cleared of all non-essential personnel. Heavy blast doors had been installed at every entrance. Emergency force fields stood ready to activate at a moment's notice. A team of the Federation's best scientists waited nearby, eager to study the creature while simultaneously terrified of being in the same sector as it. The Unconquered glided into the bay with practiced ease, settling onto the landing platform with barely a bump. For several long moments, nothing happened. The tension in the bay was thick enough to cut with a plasma blade. Then the main cargo hatch began to open. Veltok's 4 hearts all skipped at once as the ramp lowered. He could hear the sound of claws on metal, each step sending echoes through the cavernous bay. The security team raised their weapons, fingers hovering over triggers. Captain Stone appeared first, walking down the ramp as casually as if he were going for a morning stroll. Behind him came Private Rodriguez, a short woman with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She held a chain in one hand. The Krethax followed. It was somehow even more terrifying in person than it had been on screen. Its scales gleamed under the bay's lights, each one a natural piece of armor that had evolved to withstand the most hostile environments in the galaxy. Its 6 legs moved with a predator's grace, powerful muscles rippling beneath the armored hide. Its mouth was closed, but Veltok knew what lurked behind those lips: 3 rows of teeth. Corrosive saliva, the biological weapons of an apex predator. And it was wearing a collar. Not just any collar, a bright red collar with a little tag that probably had its name on it. Buddy. The monster's name was Buddy. Ambassador Veltok, Captain Stone called out, waving. Good to finally meet you in person. Veltok approached slowly, every instinct screaming at him to run. Captain Stone, welcome to Federation Station Gamma. Thanks for having us. Stone gestured toward the creature. This is Buddy. Say hello, Buddy. The Krethax looked at Veltok with eyes that had witnessed the extinction of civilizations. Then it sat down, raised one massive paw and waved. Several members of the security team fainted. He's a bit shy around new people, Rodriguez explained apologetically. Usually takes him a few minutes to warm up. I see, Veltok managed. The scientific team would like to conduct some observations if that is acceptable. Sure, no problem. Buddy loves attention. The science team approached with extreme caution, their sensors and scanning equipment held before them like shields. Dr. Relix, a collective scholar whose crystalline body was practically vibrating with terror, took the first readings. Fascinating, they murmured. The creature's stress hormones are remarkably low. This is completely inconsistent with Krethax behavior patterns. They are normally in a constant state of aggression. He was pretty grumpy when we first found him, Rodriguez admitted. But that was mostly because he was hungry. Krethax are actually pretty chill when they're well fed and getting enough exercise. Chill, Dr. Relix repeated, as if the word were in an alien language. Yeah, they're pack hunters, right? So they need social interaction. On their homeworld they live in family groups. Buddy was alone when we found him, probably lost his family somehow. Once he realized we weren't a threat and we had food, he kind of latched onto us. You are saying, Veltok said slowly, that the Krethax are not naturally aggressive, that they only attack because they are hungry and lonely. Pretty much. I mean, they're still predators. You definitely don't want to startle one or threaten its family, but if you approach them right, they're basically big scaly puppies. Buddy chose that moment to yawn, revealing the full glory of his 3 rows of teeth. Several scientists made small sounds of distress. He's tired, Rodriguez said. The hyperspace jump always makes him sleepy. Is there somewhere he can take a nap? Veltok directed them to the secure observation area that had been prepared. It was designed to contain the creature if it became violent, with reinforced walls and emergency suppression systems. Instead, the Krethax curled up in the corner, tucked its tail over its nose, and promptly fell asleep. He likes it, Rodriguez said, pleased. Lots of space, good temperature. Over the next several hours, the scientists conducted their observations while the creature slept. The data they gathered was remarkable. The Krethax's vital signs were stable and healthy. Its brain activity showed patterns consistent with complex thought and emotional processing. Most surprisingly, it showed elevated levels of hormones associated with bonding and affection, particularly when Rodriguez was nearby. "It has imprinted on her," Dr. Relics announced in amazement. "Like a hatchling with its parent, the creature has accepted the human as a member of its pack." "Of course he has," Rodriguez said, not looking up from the data pad she was reading. "I'm his person. He knows I'll take care of him." "But how?" Veltok asked, unable to contain his curiosity. "The Krethax have never shown any indication of being tameable. Every previous attempt has resulted in the deaths of those who tried." Rodriguez shrugged. Maybe they were doing it wrong. Everyone who tried before was scared of them. Animals can sense fear. It makes them nervous, and nervous animals are dangerous. When Buddy first charged at us, I wasn't scared. I was hungry. I had just opened my lunch when we landed, and I was annoyed that this big lizard was interrupting my meal. "You were annoyed." I had been looking forward to that beef jerky all morning. So instead of running like everyone else, I just kind of glared at him and threw my food at his face. I figured if I was going to die, at least I'd express my displeasure first. "That is the most human thing I have ever heard," Veltok said. "Probably." Anyway, he ate the jerky and just stopped, looked at me with this confused expression. I think he had never had anyone stand up to him before. His prey always ran. But I didn't run. I was too annoyed to run. And then he followed me back to the shuttle, made this sad little noise when I got inside, and I just couldn't leave him. He looked so lonely, like a stray dog you find in an alley, so I opened the door and let him in. Veltok stared at her. "You let a Krethax into your shuttle because it looked lonely." He was lonely and hungry and cold. The planet was pretty harsh. I couldn't just leave him there. It is a monster that has destroyed entire civilizations. He's not a monster. He's just an animal that evolved in a really hostile environment. All that stuff about destroying civilizations, they were probably just hungry. Imagine if you were starving and you found a planet full of food that couldn't fight back. You'd eat too. Veltok opened his mouth to argue, but he found he could not. From the creature's perspective, she was right. The Krethax had not destroyed civilizations out of malice. They had simply been hungry predators following their instincts. They were not evil. They were just dangerous in the same way a natural disaster was dangerous, without intent or morality. The creature in the observation area stirred, lifting its massive head. Its eyes found Rodriguez through the transparent wall, and its tail began to wag. "He's awake," she said, standing. "Time for his walk. Is that open area ready?" "Yes," Veltok said, though every survival instinct in his body was screaming objections. "The main cargo staging area has been cleared, but I must ask that armed guards accompany you." "Sure, just tell them not to point their weapons at Buddy. He doesn't like it, makes him nervous." "I will convey that instruction." Rodriguez entered the observation area, and the creature rose to greet her, pressing its enormous head against her torso with obvious affection. She scratched behind its ears and clipped the leash to its collar. "Come on, boy, let's go for a walk." The Krethax followed her out of the observation area with the enthusiasm of a domestic pet, completely ignoring the dozens of armed guards and terrified scientists that lined the corridor. Veltok watched them go, wondering if he was witnessing the beginning of a new era or the prelude to disaster. Only time would tell. The walk through the station corridors was the most surreal experience of Veltok's long life. He walked beside Captain Stone at the front of the procession, followed by Rodriguez and the Krethax, with a full squad of heavily armed guards bringing up the rear. Station inhabitants pressed themselves against walls as they passed, their faces showing a mixture of terror, fascination, and in some cases, what appeared to be delight. Buddy's very popular on the network, Stone commented, noticing Veltok's confusion at the various reactions. A lot of people want to see him in person. We've been getting requests for appearances since we announced we were coming here. Appearances, Veltok repeated flatly. Yeah, schools, universities, that kind of thing. Educational stuff. People want to learn about Krethak's behavior now that they know they can be tamed. Rodriguez has been giving lectures. Before Veltok could respond, a small Velori child broke free from her mother's grip and ran toward the creature. The guards raised their weapons. The mother screamed. Veltok's heart stopped. Rodriguez simply stepped aside and watched. The child stopped in front of the Krethaks, her silver wings fluttering with excitement rather than fear. She was young enough that she had probably never learned the ancestral terror of her species. To her, the creature was just a big, interesting animal. "Can I pet him?" she asked, looking up at Rodriguez. "Sure, let him smell your hand first," slowly. The child extended one small hand. The Krethaks lowered its massive head and sniffed, its breath ruffling her feathers. Then it licked her hand with a tongue that could strip flesh from bone. The child giggled. "It tickles." "He likes you," Rodriguez said. "You can scratch under his chin. He loves that." The child reached up with both hands and scratched the creature's chin. The Krethak's eyes half closed in obvious pleasure, and a deep rumbling sound emerged from its chest. "He's purring," the child announced delightedly. The mother finally reached them, grabbing her daughter and pulling her away. But instead of running, she hesitated, staring at the creature that had haunted her people's nightmares for millennia. "It really is tame," she whispered. "The stories said, we always thought." "He's a good boy," Rodriguez said simply. "He just needs someone to take care of him." The mother looked at her daughter, then at the creature, then at Rodriguez. Something shifted in her expression, some ancient fear releasing its grip. "May I?" she asked, gesturing toward the Krethaks. "Sure." The Velori mother reached out with trembling fingers and touched the creature's scales. The Krethaks watched her with patient eyes, making no move to attack or even seem annoyed. "It's warm," she said in surprise. "I always thought they would be cold." "They're warm-blooded," Rodriguez explained. "They need to maintain high body temperatures to keep their metabolism running. That's actually part of why they're so hungry all the time. High energy needs." Word of the encounter spread through the station faster than light. By the time they reached the cargo staging area, a crowd had gathered behind the security barriers, watching as Rodriguez unclipped the leash and let Buddy run free in the open space. The Krethaks bounded across the area with obvious joy, its 6 legs carrying it at speeds that made the guards nervous. Rodriguez produced a ball from her pack and threw it, sending it bouncing across the floor. Buddy chased it, caught it, and brought it back, tail wagging furiously. "Good boy," Rodriguez called out, catching the ball and throwing it again. Veltok watched the crowd's reaction. Fear was still present, but it was mixing with something else now. Wonder, amazement, even joy. A Krethaks was playing fetch in the middle of a Federation station, and no one was dying. Admiral Koreth appeared beside him, his massive armored form somehow moving silently. "I never thought I would see such a thing," the Admiral rumbled. "My grandfather lost an arm to a Krethaks. My great-grandmother lost her life. And yet here one plays like a pet beast." "The humans are remarkable," Veltok agreed. "They seem to have no sense of what should be impossible." "That is their greatest strength," Koreth said, "and perhaps their most frightening quality. They do not know the limits that others accept. Where we see monsters, they see potential companions. Where we see danger, they see opportunity." The play session continued for about an hour before Buddy began to slow down. Rodriguez called him over and reattached the leash, leading him back toward the observation area. "He needs to rest," she explained to the disappointed crowd. "Maybe I can bring him back out later if you all want." The crowd erupted in cheers. Someone started chanting "Buddy, Buddy, Buddy," and others joined in. The Krethax, apparently enjoying the attention, raised its head and let out a sound that might have been meant to be intimidating but came out sounding almost like a happy howl. The cheering intensified. Later that evening, Veltok met with the human captain in his diplomatic quarters. Stone had shed his formal uniform for more casual clothing and was sipping something that smelled vaguely toxic. "Coffee," Stone explained, noticing Veltok's expression. "Human beverage. Mildly poisonous to most species, actually, but we love the stuff." "Of course you do," Veltok said. Nothing about humans surprised him anymore. "So," Stone said, settling into a chair, "what do you want to know?" "Everything. The Federation needs to understand how you accomplished this. If there is a way to reduce the threat the Krethax pose." "They're not really a threat," Stone interrupted. "That's the thing everyone keeps missing. They're just animals doing what animals do. Hunting, eating, protecting their territory. The only reason they've been so dangerous is because no one ever tried to communicate with them on their level. They have destroyed 17 sentient species." "Sure, because those species treated them like monsters, attacked them, drove them from their territory, killed their young. What did they expect the Krethax to do? Roll over and accept extinction?" Veltok had no answer for that. "Back on Earth," Stone continued, "we had this species called wolves, apex predators, terrified our ancestors for thousands of years, hunted them, killed them, tried to wipe them out completely. But then some genius figured out that if you raised wolf pups with humans, they bonded. They became loyal. Eventually, they evolved into dogs, man's best friend. You believe the same can be done with the Krethax?" "Buddy's proof that it can. The question is whether the Federation is willing to try. It means approaching them differently, not with weapons and fear, but with food and patience. It means seeing them as potential allies instead of enemies." "The Council will never agree to that." "Then the Council is going to keep losing species to Krethax attacks. Your choice." Stone finished his coffee and stood. "I need to check on Rodriguez. She's been teaching some of your scientists how to handle Buddy. Apparently they're very eager students." He left Veltok alone with his thoughts, and a decision that could change the course of galactic history. The emergency happened on the third day. Veltok was in the middle of drafting his report to the Council when alarms began blaring throughout the station. He rushed to the command center, where chaos was already in full swing. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Pirates," the station commander replied, her face grim. "The Ravager Collective. 3 ships just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of our defensive perimeter. They're demanding we surrender the station or they'll start destroying civilian transports." Veltok felt his blood run cold. The Ravager Collective was one of the most vicious pirate groups in the sector. They had a reputation for keeping their word, but only when it came to threats. If they said they would destroy civilian ships, they would. "Where is Admiral Korath's fleet?" "Already engaging, but the pirates have hostages. 2 civilian freighters are being held at weapons point. If we attack, they'll be destroyed." The tactical display showed the situation clearly. The Federation warships had superior firepower, but the pirate vessels had positioned themselves behind the captured freighters, using the civilians as shields. "Can we negotiate?" Veltok asked. "They're demanding full access to the station's cargo bays and the human ship. Apparently, they've heard about the Krethax and want to capture it. They want Buddy. They think they can sell it to the highest bidder. A tame Krethax would be worth a fortune to the right buyer." Before Veltok could respond, Captain Stone's voice came over the communication system. "Command Center, this is Stone. We're monitoring the situation, requesting permission to offer assistance." The station commander looked at Veltok, who nodded. "Permission granted, Captain. What do you have in mind?" "Rodriguez has a plan. It's a bit unorthodox." "At this point, Captain, Unorthodox is all we have." 20 minutes later, Veltok watched from the command center as the Unconquered launched from its docking bay. Instead of heading toward the standoff, it circled around to approach from an unexpected angle. "They're hailing the pirate flagship," the communications officer reported. "Put it on screen." Captain Stone's face appeared, looking remarkably calm for someone flying toward a pirate fleet. "Ravager Collective," he said. "This is Captain Marcus Stone of the Terran vessel Unconquered. I understand you want what's aboard my ship." The pirate captain appeared on the split screen. He was a large Thraxian with scars covering half his face and a cybernetic eye that gleamed red. "Smart human, surrender your vessel and the creature and we'll let the hostages go. Refuse and we start spacing civilians." "Counteroffer," Stone said pleasantly. "You release the hostages and leave this system immediately, and we don't unleash our Krethax on your ships." The pirate laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Unleash it. Your pet monster. It's on a leash, human. We've seen the videos. It plays fetch." "He does play fetch," Stone agreed. "He also protects his family, and right now you're threatening his family." The pirate's expression flickered with uncertainty, but he recovered quickly. "You're bluffing. That creature is contained. You wouldn't risk releasing it." "Rodriguez," Stone called, "show them." The camera view shifted to the Unconquered's cargo bay. Rodriguez stood next to Buddy, who was no longer on a leash. The creature's posture had changed completely. Gone was the relaxed, happy pet. In its place was every nightmare the galaxy had ever had about Krethax. Its scales seemed to bristle, its claws were fully extended, and its 3 rows of teeth were bared in a snarl that needed no translation. "He knows you're threatening us," Rodriguez said calmly. "He can hear the alarms. He can smell my stress hormones, and he's really, really angry about it." The cargo bay doors behind her began to open, revealing the void of space beyond. The Unconquered was now within jumping distance of the pirate flagship. "Krethax can survive in vacuum for up to an hour," Rodriguez continued conversationally. "Their scales are natural pressure suits. They can propel themselves through space using bursts of their acid saliva, and once they board an enemy ship, they are nearly impossible to stop." The pirate captain's face had gone pale. Even with his cybernetic eye, he was unable to hide his fear. "You wouldn't," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Release the hostages," Stone said quietly. "Leave this system. Never come back, or I give Rodriguez the signal and Buddy does what Krethax do best." On the cargo bay feed, the creature let out a sound that traveled across the communication channel and caused everyone in the station's command center to flinch. It was not the happy rumble or the playful howl they had become familiar with. It was a predator's roar, a promise of violence that spoke directly to the deepest survival instincts of every sentient being who heard it. The standoff lasted exactly 4 more seconds. "All ships release the hostages," the pirate captain ordered, his voice shaking. "We're leaving now." The pirate fleet disengaged so quickly that they nearly crashed into each other in their rush to enter hyperspace. Within minutes, they were gone, leaving behind 2 very relieved civilian freighters. The communication channel to the Unconquered remained open. Rodriguez was scratching Buddy behind the ears, and the creature was back to his usual happy self, tail wagging contentedly. "Good boy," she said, "best boy." Veltok slumped against a console, his 4 hearts finally beginning to slow to their normal rhythm. "They trained it to threaten on command," the station commander asked in disbelief. "Apparently," Veltok said, "I believe they call it guard dog mode." The aftermath of the incident changed everything. The story of the Krethax that had scared away a pirate fleet spread across the galaxy faster than any previous story about Buddy. Suddenly, the fear that had defined the species for 10,000 years began to mix with something else. Hope. If Krethax could be tamed, if they could be made into allies rather than enemies, If a single human soldier could turn the most terrifying predator in the galaxy into both a loving pet and a fearsome protector, then perhaps the future held possibilities that no one had ever imagined. The Federation Council convened a special session 3 weeks later. Representatives from every major species attended, their attitudes notably different from the panicked gathering that had occurred before the Unconquered's arrival. "The evidence is clear," High Counselor Zethnari announced. "The Krethax are not inherently hostile. They are animals that respond to stimuli like any other creature. With proper approach and training, they can be domesticated." She paused, looking at the human delegation seated in the observers' gallery. Captain Stone and Private Rodriguez were there, with Buddy curled up at their feet, wearing his bright red collar and looking completely out of place in the formal setting. "This council hereby authorizes the creation of a joint human federation program to study and implement Krethax domestication protocols. Private Rodriguez will serve as primary consultant, with full authority to train other species in her methods." Rodriguez stood and bowed, a gesture she had learned from watching alien diplomats. Beside her, Buddy raised his head and let out a happy rumble that echoed through the chamber. Several delegates actually laughed. "The program will be named Project Good Boy," Zethnari continued, her silver wings actually relaxing for the first time in weeks, "in honor of the first successfully domesticated Krethax." More laughter, genuine and relieved. As the council session ended and delegates began to file out, Veltok approached the human delegation. "You have changed the galaxy," he said. "You know that, right?" Rodriguez shrugged, scratching Buddy's chin as the creature pressed against her leg. "I just didn't want to leave him alone," she said. "He looked so sad." "That," Veltok said, "is the most human answer you could possibly give." Captain Stone clapped the ambassador on the shoulder. "We're simple creatures, Ambassador. We see something suffering, we try to help. We see something dangerous, we try to understand it. We see potential where others see threats." "And that is why you are terrifying," Veltok said, but he was smiling. "Any species that can look at a Krethax and see a friend is not to be underestimated." "We prefer to think of it as optimistic," Stone replied. Buddy chose that moment to roll onto his back, exposing his belly for scratches. His 6 legs kicked in the air as Rodriguez obliged, his tail wagging so hard it nearly knocked over a passing dignitary. "The most dangerous creature in the galaxy," Veltok mused, watching the display, "and you have reduced it to this." "Not reduced," Rodriguez corrected gently. "Helped him become what he was always capable of being. All he needed was someone to give him a chance." Veltok considered those words as he watched the human and her impossible pet walk out of the council chamber. Around them, beings from a dozen different species paused to watch, some still fearful, some curious, but more and more of them smiling. The galaxy would never be the same. And for the first time in a very long time, that was a good thing. The end.